had no idea this was here. I haven't seen these little guys in forever. Hello!
Ooh, a queen whose whole motive is time. I myself don't like time, it's too confusing. Does Skywynne have a vat of acid stowed away somewhere? Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Star versus the Forces of Evil! Or more specifically, Skywynne, the Queen of Hours. Why am I doing this now? Well, let me explain, since it's for two reasons. The first reason is that I'm still in school. I'm not technically a teacher yet, although I do get to do classroom instruction. In school, is starting to get a little tougher. Now I actually have to be in the classroom full days each week. Like some days I'm probably going to be in school from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. because thanks NJ Transit and thanks my class advisor, but I can't stop doing YouTube because this is my only source of income and my family will starve. So hey, this is a compromise. And second, well, I used to be a big fan of Slice of Otaku, which many of you told me he's doing way better and he still works on YouTube, he just doesn't make videos on his channel. So that's really great to hear. I used to watch him in the Roundtable back in high school and during my freshman year of college, and they're part of why I wanted to be a YouTuber. One series that Slice of Otaku did that I really loved was on the Mumin Queens, which were featured in the Book of Spells companion book. Despite the book featuring about a dozen or more, well, he was only really able to get to 3 before he went on a near permanent hiatus. Skywynne, Justin, and Solaria. So in a way, I feel like this is my way of carrying on his work and finishing the series on his behalf, because after all, the cartoon community is still a community. He was a big inspiration to me after all. Not to mention that he was doing the series while the show was still airing, so it'll be good to look at this book with a new perspective. Plus, if I'm in school and I had like a really intense week and I can't get content out, like if I had a lesson plan that went on too long or I went to a con that was out of state, well, maybe this can suffice too. I want to do a full series on the book, starting with the queens, and then maybe at the end we'll do a video on Glossaric and the Magic High Commission, or an overall thoughts video. Let's just see how this one does first, okay? Because I've never really done a video like this. I guess maybe my Bellows video, but that doesn't really count, okay? Heck, I don't even think I've done a series before unless you count the one I did on Eclipse's family. So, let's discuss. The Magic Book of Spells is a companion book that released during the gap between seasons 3 and 4 of Star Versus. Think like the Book of Bill or Journal Free. It features a lot of lore in the show, a lot of callbacks, and it helps to foreshadow many of the events that'll eventually happen, such as Eclipse betraying Star and the Monster and the Queen in order to rescue Glovgor.
So, looks like the book is back. Oh, you got Glossaric Silkworm slamming it back together. And what do you know? It's turned to that crystal pulverizing spell.
Or Ronaldo the Bald Pate from Meteora's Lesson.
Who speaks in rhyme and wanders time with none to call his family? No phone calls, cards,
Thank you, Ronaldo. Please be quiet.
In the world of Star Versus, when a princess is given the wand at 14, she typically gets a guidebook and tutor to help her learn about magic in the form of the Magic Book of Spells, which is the home of Sir Glossaric of Terms.
Did someone say Glossaric? 'Cause that's me, Sir Glossaric of Terms. At your service, milady.
And she keeps this book writing down her own spells and life story until she passes the wand and the book to her successor, usually her own daughter, when she turns 14. In addition to keeping the spells, it also acts as a mini diary of sorts for each queen, and also as a way to, again, give callbacks to the show. On top of their spells, which are usually forms of exposition, the book features running commentary by Glossaric and Star, although with Star, she tends to skim or skip around certain sections or chapters, which is honestly totally in character.
And created her own chapter of dangerous evil magic.
Have you ever even read it?
Of course not.
Well, I have, and it really wasn't that big of a deal.
Hence why Eclipse's chapter spells out clearly why she left and all that jazz, but Star is confused about it in season 3. She probably just read the spells and that was it. The first queen we have in the running is Skywynne, the Queen of Hours, aka the only queen whose chapter Star read in its entirety. You know how I said that the Book of Spells should have been its own season, or at least a mini-series? Well, honestly, on its own, Skywynne can definitely have her own show. Like, this could be a perfect spin-off. Like, the level of details, intricacies, I think next to Solaria, it's like the longest chapter in the book. So, let's discuss. As the the saying goes, tick-tock, the clock talks, but secrets are its power. The only one to break its spell is Skywynne, Queen of Hours. Oh yeah, BTW, each queen gets a rhyme, just so you know. Skywynne was the 27th Queen of Muni, and the first one listed in the book. Why is that, you ask? Is it because Glossaryck also taught Quentin Tarantino in addition to the butterflies? Well, as we learn, the framing device is that the original Book of Spells was destroyed, but we'll get there when we get there. Skywynne Lavender Butterfly got the Royal Magic Wand at age 14 and became Queen of Muni at 17, and from day one, the deck was stacked against her. She was 5 feet tall, so she was short, like a little shorter than me. She was plain looking, and she had very few, if any, allies. The Lusitors, for instance, weren't allies as of yet, so they pulled humans down into their world, and the monsters were beginning to become a constant thorn in her side. Same goes for the Ponyheads. She had nobody to rely on. And most importantly, as will be a theme, her mother and predecessor, Lyric Butterfly, was a terrible woman and a terrible queen. Hey, that rhymes. However, Lyric was everything that Skywynne did not want to be as queen and as a mother herself, and to some degree, she did succeed in breaking the cycle. It all started on the day she got the Royal Magic Wand. Now, as we saw in the pilot, when a queen turns 14, her mother gives her the wand in a wand-passing ceremony.
Because today is my 14th birthday, and according to tradition, my mom has to bestow upon me the Royal Magic Wand!
But whereas Star's wand-passing ceremony was a super muted affair, probably not even with a party, probably because of what happened here and because Moon did not really trust Star with the wand, well, Lyric went above and beyond and spared no expense. She hired jugglers, songstrels, mimes, and some dragons. Wait, dragons? The dragons got loose and caused a fire, and Skywynne begged her mother to use her broomstick wand to fly to the castle and retrieve the magic book of spells. Lyric did fly, but instead of retrieving the book of spells, she retrieved the Great Book of Fashion, a guide for queens on how to plan the fashion for their reigns. And the spell book was lost in the fire, along with the original Butterfly Castle. Speaking of, the picture we see in the book of spells, well, the page doesn't clearly reflect Skywynne's reign. Her mother just insisted she pick something, so Skywynne just picked a random page. If they ever did a Skywynne show, this would be a good episode or background joke, like, ugh, I don't care. Why is everybody dressing like this? I said I don't care. However, I think this also explains why everybody kind of dresses like Moon. I don't know, because we know Moon does her hair because of her mom, so what if everybody's just doing it to copy the queen? Regardless, Skywynne was appalled at her mother. How dare Lyric prioritize a pointless fashion book over an artifact, a tome that had been in their family for generations. And with the death of the original spellbook also came the death of Glossaryck.
You know, even though I knew this was coming, it's still kind of a surprise. Yay! Hey, look! It worked!
Yeah, don't worry, he comes back. I mean, you know he comes back! Besides, I might be spoiling things, but the book shows us he died and came back like several times. I think like 5 times. Which is probably why the Magic High Commission did not hold a funeral for him, why Moon did not hold a funeral for him, but they all came out and held one for Lekmet. Not only does everybody hate Glossaryck, they know he's gonna come back one day. Maybe not right now, but he will be back. Whereas Lekmet, he's their brother, and as far as they know, he's gone for good. As a compromise, Skywynne started writing a new book, the Book of Spells we're currently reading/analyzing.
You lost the sacred book of spells and replaced it with a college-ruled notebook.
Oh, baby! The little cat thing. I guess Star wasn't the only one to replace the magic book of spells, and you put that down as a bad thing. As you can tell by now, Skywynne and her mother had, I guess you can say, a tense relationship. Probably the most complicated one presented in the book. What about Eclipse and Solaria? We'll get there when we get to their videos. Skywynne became queen at 17 because her mother retired. Not because she thought that Skywynne was capable of looking after the kingdom or Lyric was sick or something, but because she was bored and she wanted to retire to the butterfly vacation home in a volcano. Oh god, you're sticking your teenage daughter with responsibility so you could have good skin. Wow. At least Moon had a valid excuse for why she was forced to grow up so quickly.
I was never a cool warrior queen, Star. I was a happy-go-lucky girl like you. And then
Toffee and his monsters killed my mother.
And don't worry, Skywynne did get the wand when she was 14. In a way her mother probably hated. It was a private, muted affair on the remains of Butterfly Castle with only Skywynne and her parents. But when she grabbed the wand, she felt like time was all around her. An unending paradox, not forward, not back. How do you live with that revelation, girl? Like, imagine that existential crisis. But as you can tell, every Queen of Muni has a title, even if they presumably don't repeat names. This title normally describes a great act a queen has done, and with Skywynne, that was rebuilding Butterfly Castle. One day, Lyra came for a visit with Prince Dip Kelpbottom in order to set Skywynne up with him, but Skywynne kicked them out with her wand. I mean, why would she want Prince Dip? She wanted Sir Gemrobin. Unfortunately, this continued for weeks, until Skywynne realized that her mother had no memory of what was happening, nor did the castle staff, meaning Skywynne had created a Groundhog Day loop. Sucks Skywynne lived like 400 years too early. She would have loved that movie. The musical, on the other hand, I mean, I've never seen it, but I have heard conflicting reports, so go watch it on your own time. The Butterfly Castle still wasn't built. Her people wanted something done about it, but they didn't want to do the work. Instead, they lived in tents and huts on the remains of what once was. Oh yeah, for these entries, there will be several common themes we will be analyzing. The threat of monsters and how the queens dealt with them to little to no success, often making the problem worse. The fact that most human queens are misandrous against men, or just view them as glorified throne candy, to quote Solaria. Skywynne mostly wasn't, but she does say, and I quote, "Think of something frustrating, like how your mother believes a man is of any importance." And most importantly, the fact that the humans are lazy, since they're used to the queens taking care of them and refuse to put any of the work in themselves, which I like how season 4 pointed out with the Maisleys. Moon took care of them a little too well.
Haven't any of you ever learned to take care of yourselves?
We've never had to before. You always took such good care of us.
You gave us good jobs and a nice home.
Or how Solaria couldn't get any of her subjects to become part of her army except for Mina Loveberry because they were just used to the attacks. As in, they probably hated them, but they just viewed them as another fact of life.
It's fine. It's not fine.
Plus, shouldn't you be doing, like, queen stuff?
Yeah, seems like a lot of work.
Well, isn't protecting the people also considered queen stuff? What are you doing to help the problem? Skywynne told her people they could rebuild Butterfly Castle in just a day if they listened to her. When really, thanks to her Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children effect, it was about 5 years. But they did not know that, and the castle was rebuilt to its former glory. And it stood like that, until some 400 years later when Meteora and Star destroyed it during their fight. But for this, Skywynne was exalted and dubbed the Queen of Hours, and I wonder if they ever found out she tricked them. Like, imagine how angry they would all be. But if you couldn't guess by the chapter and the title, yeah, Skywynne's spells were mostly time-based, and one notable spell was when she accidentally stopped Muni from rotating, and well, okay. She wrote this in Low Mumin, aka a code language that is featured prominently in the Book of Spells. To quote, 16 Mumins were lost to space. They ended up inhabiting another planet, which is now a bustling world. One day, they will attack Muni. This spell is very dangerous. Alright, I know in hindsight it was probably a joke, but I feel like this would have been a good idea for season 4. Or again, maybe another spin-off, like Earth and Muni are now merged, and they need to stop this threat. And maybe humans and Mumins hate each other until they have to band together to stop the threat. Or maybe this was the world we saw in Princess Quasar. Whatever it was, thanks for destroying Magic Star. We'll all be a lot happier when this happens and we don't have magic to defend ourselves like before. Really? And I thought Seth was a wasted opportunity. Remember the episode Freeze Day? That came from this chapter.
What to do if you make a dimension explode? What to do if you delete gravity? Oh.
Don't get any ideas.
Sorry. What to do if you freeze time?
There's also a spell to reanimate the dead, which apparently is a lot better than what Genie says. And of course, Star's favorite spell, the Warnicorn Stampede, where you do all of the dance moves. I'm gonna try it myself. Okay guys, so I'm gonna do the Warnicorn Stampede from Skywynne's chapter, and just to be real with you, I don't have a wand, so I'm gonna use this bottle of soap I found. Okay, here we go. Cross your arms, go like this, and twirl. And then strike another pose, and then twirl again, and then go down, and then put your arms up in the air, and then bow, and then twirl again, and then put your arms up, then Warnicorn Stampede. Why did it start like this spell? I'm out of breath. That was terrible. How was that? Oddly, I was surprised it came from Skywynne. I thought it was gonna come from, like, Crescenta. In hindsight, I think this explains why Glossaric chose the spell for starter practice. Like, besides the reasons he mentioned, like it having pictures.
There's spells in your book.
Yeah, but...
Oh, Star, look! This one's got pictures. Can we do it?
That's got a lot of steps.
He knew Star read Skywynne's chapter like it was enough to interest her from beginning to end, so maybe he thought that it would be a fun spell for her to want to learn. Or maybe after Star did the spell, Glossaric told her off screen, and that got her to sit down and properly read the chapter like, ooh, I wonder what else this lady does. Oh, there's only the one spell? Ugh. We already went over the Groundhog Day loop, where you twirl with your pinky out and repeat the phrase, infuriating repeater. If you want the spell to end, you simply repeat it backwards. There's also another spell where you can go forward in time, but at the cost of not getting the time back. So like if say you go a year forward in time, you lose a year of your life. Among the uses for the spell Skywynne used the Groundhog Day loop for included studying for exams, getting the most out of vacation days, and boys. Oh, so you do think men are of an importance. Oh yeah, I love this chick. Now, Skywynne isn't my favorite queen, that is Eclipsa, but I do respect how capable she was, especially at a young age, and how socially awkward she was. Like, to quote her, one reason you shouldn't use the spell is to get to know someone when you are too shy to speak to them like a regular person, or when you are not sure of the right thing to say to someone who probably doesn't know you exist and wish to try out a bunch of different things. So you hopefully sound exciting and they will remember you better. Hello doesn't get much response, and I like your muscles feels awkward. So you eventually settle on how's the weather. Also, BTW, she would stop time to sniff this guy's t-shirts, which is cute, but if the genders were reversed, no, it wouldn't be. Yeah, I think I've said it before, but I'm pretty socially awkward in real life since I get really nervous. Either I'm super quiet since I don't know if I can be weird around you yet, or I'm super excited like a cat on the zoomies since I get nervous. Wait a minute, is that masking? I would love a spell like this. That way I wouldn't have to rehearse stuff in my head a billion times. Honestly, I'd do it for something as simple as just calling for a pizza. This makes me wonder if perhaps Lyric kept trying to introduce Skywynne to boys because she knew her daughter was super shy, so maybe she could help her by taking the first step. Like, look sweetie, now you don't even have to make the first move or wonder if he's interested in you. I mean, we know that Skywynne likes a guy with muscles, and as we saw with the main series, the waterfolk have them. Maybe that's why she tried Prince Dip. But maybe she didn't know Skywynne already had a crush on Sir Gemrobin, a human. Or she didn't care since as queen she's going to need a king eventually. Tell that to her daughter. Catherine, we aren't there yet. What I like about Skywynne as a queen, and why if they were to ever revive Star Versus they should do a prequel on her instead, is that she fully admits when she makes mistakes. Mistakes that unfortunately have consequences to the present day. Have you ever seen Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? Well, apparently Skywynne has, with magic attached. Skywynne was able to concoct a spell to make food rain from the sky, albeit according to Glossaric it wasn't good food, but food is food to a peasant. And well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because of this, the humans got fatter and fatter, and they began to expand into monster territory, and worse yet, her subjects wouldn't even say thank you. I mean, taking land is one thing, but not even a thank you, what the hey? And worser than that, her crush, Sir Gemrobin, had a girlfriend, an eventual wife. However, before we go any further, I want to bring up something if I haven't already. I think I said above that one constant theme in the Book of Spells is the Queens of Muni tend to be sexist. Since to them, men can't have magic. Even Skywynne herself indulged in it sometimes. It's a theme we'll get explored with Skywynne's son in the next video, and how he failed to break the glass ceiling. And to that end, many queens don't mention their husbands, unless it pertains to their story. Heck, some queens never even mention their fathers.
You know, Lord Mildrew is still single. Never too late to start over, dearie.
Yes, Aunt Etheria. I heard you the first 100 times.
Which I do find extremely unique. While not as stated in the show, the Butterfly Kingdom is matriarchal, since they believe only women can do magic, even though we know that's not true, but they don't. Meaning that while men can inherit, well, daughters are valued far more. In the real world, let's say the Middle Ages, men were valued more in the royal courts because they could further the family line and everything would go go to them. So women, especially princesses and queens, were mostly viewed as glorified breeding stock. Men being glorified cream factories in Muni is something I do wish the show focused in on more, the same way they did with the monster racism allegory. Like when Antiferia says that Moon should divorce River, maybe it turns out River has had a lot of setbacks because of his gender. Maybe they were worried it was too overstuffed, maybe they didn't know how to properly convey it. I just like the idea, I hate to say. So I do find it quite unique that she's one of the few queens to actually mention her love interest as something of a person. And again, I find it more heartwarming that Moon sticks with River even if her relatives have a problem with it and they've had a mostly healthy marriage. To blow off steam, literally, Skywynne went to Dimension 811, which was full of rock moss and fluorescent worms. Aw, how cute, and she literally let off steam. She tapped into her emotions, dipped down for the first time, and blew up the dimension. But she did protect the worms, who now thrive in Dimension 8 too, since she found a couple in her shoe. Hey, that rhymes. Showing that love happens in some truly strange places. This caused Skywynne to enter into a depression-like stupor. She only came out of her room to make food for her people, and then promptly went back in. At least until her mother did the only good motherly thing in this whole book. She came over and told Skywynne that she was pushing herself too hard, and she shouldn't try to solve all of the problems of Muni, for there were far too many. And while I do get what her mom was saying, yeah, Skywynne did not like this. It did reinvigorate her, however, and she decided that things were going to change. Her subjects would no longer get food, they would have to work for what they'd want. It sucked for them, but they planted corn, and 5 years later, their population doubled. Unfortunately, this meant they had to take land from the monsters to make new settlements for themselves, and Skywynne taught her people how to fight. Which, yeah, really, Skywynne? You're basically the reason why monsters are a problem. Oh yeah, that's another point. Skywynne is the human golden age queen. Like, oh, how perfect, there will never be another one like her. Think like Queen Elizabeth or Queen Victoria. But the thing is, well, people forget that monarchs can cause problems, can exacerbate problems or whatever, and still be considered perfect. Skywynne was a great queen, and she really proved her worth. However, yeah, she never really did anything about the monsters. Monsters were already considered a problem, but the main reason they started attacking the Butterfly land was because they had their own land stolen from them. I want to make a joke about a place where people live on stolen land, but I can't, so go watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Her successors did little to help the problem, or they just made the problem worse. And Skywynne herself, while wanting to be better than her mother, is still a somewhat problematic person, considering her views on monsters. She just wasn't remembered for that because all of her achievements dwarfed that in comparison. However, love happens in strange places. Skywynne found out that Sir Jem Robin was divorced, and with newfound joy, she went to his house, kissed him, and confessed her feelings. They married a year later in Dimension 812, surrounded by the worms that Skywynne had rescued. Oh, how cute! There was a happy ending all along. Or would there be? For you see, she made babies with her new husband, only her first child wasn't a daughter, it was a boy. And his name was Justin. Oh, how normal! And finally, Glosric returned. According to him, which I find to be one big fat lie, he did not die in the fire. He just went on vacation. And when he was on vacation, he also helped Romulus by turning his hands into snakes, with the lesson being that having snakes for hands sucks.
Glosric's gone? This is amazing! It's actually really bad, but it's good for me. But yeah, wow, I mean, that's bad news for the universe.
And he wonders why Romulus hates him. Although granted, knowing what we know about Glosric, I think he did like all of those things. Like he really died in the fire, and then somehow he came back, and then he helped Romulus, especially since Skywynne never mentions the Magic High Commission in her chapter, so maybe they were the ones to find a way. Plus, come on, he's immortal, so like 13 years for him is likely like a couple days at most. However, part of me also interprets this as his way of teaching Skywynne, since as we saw, she learned by doing on her own. Maybe he thought being around would be some kind of a hindrance. She needed to learn self-respect, how to do things her way, and he wouldn't be a big help. But yes, now she's Miss Independent. But yes, Skywynne did have a child, a son named Justin, who we'll cover in the next video. Thanks for watching and keep on being magical. Anyhow, bye!